Hey you guys, good to see you as always here on Grassroots Gardening. Some of you wrote to me and was wanting to know what I do with my elephant ear bulbs during the winter. So in today's video, I'm going to show you why I dig some of them up, why I leave some of them in the ground. We've got an absolutely beautiful day today here in South Carolina. We are in Zone 8A. And that's going to be the biggest determining factor of whether or not you need to dig up your bulbs. Here in 8A, we have very mild winters, but if you're in 7 or below, it might be best to dig up your bulbs. And then the second biggest factor is gonna be ground moisture. So you can see we're on kind of a slope right here. This was a colocasia Maui gold. Our first frost came a little bit early this year, so about a week ago. Frost came, knocked this guy back. So speaking of moisture, being on the hillside, I've learned to plant my elephant ears on well-drained slopes. Because what you've got to consider, once this plant gets killed back by frost, that bulb, that tuber underground is going to go dormant. And if you can keep it somewhat dry, you should be fine as long as, again, you're in a zone 8 or above. The kicker is when that bulb is asleep down there and it gets really wet, it's cold, that's when you can get rot. So this guy has come back for me 2 years in a row now, and I think it's due to the fact that he is on a slope. When we do get those cold winter rainy days, the water's draining away from him. The bulb needs a certain amount of moisture just to stay alive, even though it's asleep. But if it stays wet and cold, that's when you're gonna have problems. So I think with this guy, what we're gonna do, since it just looks bad, this is not necessary for the plant's survival. But we're just going to get rid of all of these dead leaves. I'm going to take my Felcos, come in here. You could cut it all the way back to ground level. I'm just going to come in here and clean them up a little bit. And we'll take all of this leaf debris down to the compost pile and let it give back all the nutrients, and we can use the soil next year. Usually, you know, when you buy elephant ears, whether it be online or at a garden center, just check the tag, whatever description, or do a little research. See what you can find, and they'll usually tell you, what zones they're good for. This one's even trying to put up a new leaf, but since that frost has come, the main bulb should know that it's time to go to sleep. So we're going to go ahead and just get rid of all of this top growth, all of this foliage, and then we're supposed to get even colder this coming weekend, so all of this new growth would just die anyway. So we'll go ahead and cut it off and let her go into a deeper sleep after this weekend's cold. And because our weather has been so crazy lately, this poor thing don't know what to do. It's trying to make some new leaves, doesn't know whether to go to sleep or start growing. We're going to be 80 this afternoon and then in the 30s this weekend. It's just that typical South Carolina fall weather, up, down, hot, cold, heater, air conditioned. Nobody knows what to do. So as for the elephant ears that I'm going to leave in the ground, that's really all I've got to do to it. We've just got it nicely trimmed back. It looks a lot better. And again, when the cold comes, this thing will just, all this stuff on top will just kind of melt, go down to the ground, and the bulb can go to sleep. And then since we've been successful for the past 2 winters, I don't see why it wouldn't come back this coming spring. Now I'm just going to gather up all of the excess foliage and we'll take it down to the compost pile. That way we can reuse it and get all of our nutrients back for future use. Look at this beautiful camellias blooming right now. Man, the pollinators are all over this thing this morning. We've got a honeybee in that one. The bumblebees have been all over it too. Just a beautiful specimen. That's a Sasanqua camellia right there. Gorgeous color. And the raccoons haven't been leaving my compost pile alone. I've got to come down here and build some kind of structure to house it a little bit. Got some onions on top there. We'll just take the old foliage, dump it right on top. And check this out. This was an onion that evidently we threw in the compost pile, and you tell me that plants just don't want to live. That guy's just thriving down here in the compost. And as we walk back up to show you some other elephant ears, I just thought we'd take a look. Here's the muscadine vines we pruned back in February. They've done great. Didn't produce a lot this year, but that's because this is their first year being in ground. But hopefully What I want to do is build us a nice arch right here that these muscadines can grow up and over. Next year, next spring, late February, early March, we'll shoot the juice to them, give them some fertilizer, and hopefully have us a bunch of grapes this coming year. Let's go take a look at a few other elephant ear species that we've got over here in our raised garden bed. This one, forget how it even got here, but this is a bulb off of either that or that coffee cups colocasia, which is another beautiful elephant ear. This guy, I think we need to go ahead and pull him up because the irrigation's coming on in this garden bed every morning, and as I said before, we don't want him to stay wet all winter. I'm thinking since this guy is in the raised bed, we might be able to just pull him up. I was wrong. He's in there. So, got my trusty shovel here. We'll rake some of the straw back that we put on our garlic and potatoes. Let me see if I can just kind of dig around him a little bit. Maybe if we just loosen up the soil around the tubers a little bit. Try to get the shovel down here. Boy, he is really deep. Try not to cut any of the tuber. I'll wiggle him a little bit and let's see. Oh yeah, there he comes. Yeah, we got him now. He ain't gonna whip us, y'all. So it's not a tremendous amount of tuber versus top growth with some of these colocasias. You can see right here, we've got this one little baby hanging on the side. We could divide him if we wanted to make another plant. Here's another one right here. So this is a great time to go ahead and divide up your elephant ears if you wanted to make more of them. I mean, you could even take this little dude right here and pot him up and have a completely separate plant to give away or to move around in your yard. Now we're going to take this guy around to the greenhouse, get all the soil washed up, and I'll show you how I would recommend storing the bulbs over the winter if you choose to do this. First, let me go ahead and cover our hole back up in our raised garden bed and show you guys this thing real quick too. Man, I tell you, it has been doing outstanding. Look at this growth. I know I showed y'all the broccoli like a week ago. Check that out, man. It's getting close and it's really putting on a lot of growth right now. So the thing's just gonna double and triple in size and then we can have it for dinner. Our mustard greens are nice and big and beautiful. Kale's doing great. And then this is where we put straw on top of our garlic the other day. We got our nice tags right there. It's looking good. And this was a potato that we just threw back in the raised bed. Let's see what we got going on here. If there's any potatoes down. Oh, yeah, man. Check that out. That is impressive. If I remember correctly, it was back during the summer. We just threw like one little red potato down. Man, it's done made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nice potatoes. We'll have to have those for supper sometime this week. That is incredible. Okay, don't get sidetracked, Ryan. Let's go get our elephant ear, which I just put on top of the old big green egg stove over here. Let's go get it around to the greenhouse, get it washed up, and get her packaged up for winter. And you know what, guys? I said, let's work smarter, not harder. So I just went and brought this guy down to the compost pile. We can take our Felcos and go ahead and prune off all the foliage while we're down here. That way we don't have to bring it back. This thing's got a big old main stalk coming up out of the middle. We're just going to prune it back to where we've got maybe 3 or 4 inches of the old foliage, but any of the longer foliage we're just going to go ahead and get rid of. And then I'm going to try to prune these roots off while holding the camera in my hand at the same time. And we just want to give it a haircut and get those roots pruned off because they're gonna die, and we don't want any anything that's gonna, die and start decomposing once we put this in our vermiculite mix. So we're just gonna give it a haircut, get all these roots trimmed off. And that's kind of like what we're looking for right there, y'all. Just a little short piece of stalk. Get the roots trimmed off. Now we gotta go get her washed up. Let's go in here and see what's happening in the greenhouse today. It's so nice and warm in here. It's one of my favorite feelings is to walk into this greenhouse with that humid, warm air. It just smells earthy in here. Can come in, look at all the beautiful plants. One of my favorite places in the world right here. All right, let's come over here to our sink. We got a mason jar in here full of water for some reason. But now what we want to do is just try to remove all the dirt off of this guy, because again, moisture is our enemy during winter time. So we want to get all that dirt off so that we can control the moisture a little bit better, and we don't have to worry about it rotting on us. Getting a little bit more water. We're going to rinse it really, really good. Try to work our fingers down in those roots and get as much of the dirt as possible off of this thing for storage. Now you could go ahead and separate some of the plantlets or the smaller bulbs off. I just feel like it's best to leave it all intact until next spring, because I feel like once you, turn this water off so y'all can hear me. I feel like once you divide this part off of the main plant, then its chances of survival through the winter just goes down a little bit. I just like to keep it all together. I think it helps to keep the right amount of moisture in the vermiculite, and I just feel better about leaving it all hooked together until next spring. Then we can separate it out and plant them as individual plants if we want to do that. And once we got about all the dirt off of it that we can get washed off, then it's time to let it dry. So what I've done, I just put it on some paper towels, and I took our fan here that I got off Amazon and just pointed it down at it. We'll give it a couple hours to dry on this side, and then I'll come out, flip it over. We want to make sure that it's absolutely as dry as possible before putting it in the vermiculite. In fact, I think if I can, I'll go ahead and stand him up on his end, just like so. That'll help that wind get through the roots better, get him all dried out. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, that feels much better. Still a tiny little bit of moisture on it, but that's okay, because the vermiculite, in my opinion, does the best job of maintaining a constant moisture level. Again, we don't want it to be wet, but we don't want it to be dry either. If you put it in like newspaper or cardboard or something, it could desiccate and suck all the moisture out of it, and then it just dies from being dehydrated. But I like the way this guy feels. He's just dry enough. So let's go over here and I'll show you how to store them up. So what I've got here, guys, is just a simple like little laundry basket thing. I've got my vermiculite I picked up down at Grassroots yesterday, just right off the shelf. You can get this on Amazon, I'm sure. If I can find it, I'll put a link in the description below of anything that I'm using today. And then I just got this burlap sack. We got some cool fountains that came in down at the nursery the other day, and they always use this burlap as a packing, so the fountains don't crack and hit each other. What I'm gonna do is just take my Fiskars scissors here and cut us a couple little layers, kind of line our basket. We're gonna put a little bit of vermiculite in, put our bulb in, and cover it the rest of the way with some more vermiculite. This burlap is some pretty tough stuff, but I found these awesome Fiskars scissors, I'm sure on Amazon, because that's where I get everything. But they cut just about anything. But that being said, even this burlap's giving them a little bit of trouble, because burlap is some tough stuff. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that should be good. So basically all I did was just cut off the top of it and clean it out a little bit. Now we've made a nice little bowl with the burlap, and this laundry basket will help because it has those holes in it so the air can still make it through and keep it somewhat dry. All right, let's take our vermiculite here. Let me go ahead and get this bag open. And as I was just looking on the back of the bag here, it does say storing bulbs and root crops. Always allow moist bulbs to dry for a few hours, then place them in cartons and cover with vermiculite to absorb any excess moisture. Since it absorbs moisture, vermiculite helps protect your bulbs against mildew. The insulating properties, why can't I talk today? The insulating properties protect your bulbs from temperature changes. And of course, it's also good for seed germination, cuttings, and soil amending if you have heavy clay. It's just a good natural material. I'm gonna go ahead and just pour a little layer in the bottom. And then, it's very simple. We're just gonna take our elephant ear bulb. Don't have to put him in upside down or any certain kind of way. He's gonna be dormant, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm gonna lay him on his side. We're gonna cover him the rest of the way up. Get him all the way covered up. We can take this vermiculite and just kind of work it in all the little voids down in there. We need a little bit more because we want him fully covered. Just like so. Now, if you're going to be putting this in a super dry space, you might want to add a little bit of water to the vermiculite. Just enough to where it feels cool to the touch. You don't want it wet again, but just enough to where it feels cool. And then you kind of got to check on it periodically during the winter, especially if it's going to be in a like crazy ventilated, super dry storage area. I think the spot that I've got picked out is going to be perfect. Let me go show you where it's at. And so the area that I think that's going to be perfect and what we're walking to right now is an underground tornado shelter that I built a few years ago. You can see there's the door to it. There's the aviary up top, and this thing is just a piece of 10-foot culvert pipe that I buried, and hopefully we can use it as a root cellar. But let me show you guys and y'all give me your opinion. Get our light flipped on here. It's cool. I haven't been down here in a while, but this is my tornado shelter that kind of got carried away. What I mean by that is I'm kind of like a big kid, and I built this just for tornadoes because our house is huge and metal and not built to withstand those kind of winds. So we put this piece of pipe in the ground just for somewhere for the family to run in case there was a tornado coming. But then once I got started, I was like, man, this is so much fun. It was almost like building a little clubhouse. So I actually came in and built a little shelter out of it, and we have stayed down here on occasion. And there's our oceanfront view down at that end. Got a little bed in here, but it's kind of a neat little place. But I think it's going to be perfect for storing this bulb or these bulbs because it stays nice and cool and super dark, because once these lights are out, it is pitch black down here. So I think what we'll do is just put them up here on the counter like so, and they should be just fine all winter long. And I got my cool beanbag furniture down here. So if a tornado does come, you can just come down here and chill. I got the TV right over there wired up to an antenna outside so you can actually check the weather and see what's going on. But pretty neat little place down here. I'm just curious, you know, I've never had a root cellar, but I see a lot of folks on YouTube having root cellars. I don't think it stays cool enough down here because it stays pretty constantly around 70 degrees year round, which is a little bit too warm. But I don't know, y'all leave me some comments of what you think we could do down here. Is there anything that we could store down here? I thought about making some wine. This would be a perfect place, I think, to make some wine, but we hardly ever have to use it, thank goodness. I've been a few tornadoes that came by kind of close where we all ran down here, but I don't know. What do you guys think? So if you do want to store your elephant ear bulbs, I hope this video helps. Hit that like and subscribe down there if it did. And if you love gardening content, follow along with us. We're always doing something garden related. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. The more you know, the more you grow. See you on the next video.